Yeah, Martin's going to do a main share for us today. Martin.
Thanks for your service, Eddie, and everyone else that read, and everyone doing the service in the background. And welcome to anybody who's new and broken. Yeah, I'm going to start off by getting my ego is reconstructed. It always does before a meeting, and ego is edging God out, so I have to invite God back in, and I have to set myself away to the side. So I'm going to start with the set aside prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. God, help me set aside everything I think about myself, the 12 steps, my own recovery, what I'm going to say, what's going to happen concerning relationships, health, finance, and especially what I think I know about you, God. Please help me see, have an open mind and new experience in all these things, and please help me see the truth. Amen. Yeah, my name's Martin, and I'm a very, very grateful recovered addict. And I have a bad case of alcoholism, and I didn't have to drink or drug today, thanks to God, as I understand them. And it's great to see so many friends in this room. And I didn't come in here to find friends, I didn't come in to find God. I came in to get rid of a terrifying drug habit, an alcohol habit that had me on my knees and broke me. And I'm just going to read a wee bit from the Percy Polyak wrote this, and more about alcoholism. Once more, the alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the forced drink, except in rare cases. Neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power. And I can identify with that because I went to counselors and psychiatrists, treatment centers, I tried everything, but nobody could relieve what was wrong with me, and I did not know what was wrong with me until I found a beautiful sponsor who armed me with the facts and took me through it and promised me that if he done and continued to do everything he suggested, that I would be free from this. And I was 10 months yesterday, and the obsession left me in week 5, and it hasn't come back for me a day at a time. And this is an absolute beautiful, beautiful program. And I promise you, if you are new and broken, I was an absolute mess. So I just a bit of housekeeping. Everything I share is only my experience. My opinion will get me and the newcomers killed. But I will share my experience. The big book tells me to share what it was like, what happened, what it's like now, and to qualify myself. My day started. I would wake up. I would take a couple of samazepam and a few Valium. Then I would go to the chemist and get codeine, and I would drink. If I couldn't get Benylin with codeine, I'd get Nurofen Plus. And I used to do cold water extraction, but then I stopped doing that. Then I would sit at the bar and I would drink my whiskey. And my drug addict friends didn't understand how I could drink, and my alcoholic friends didn't understand how I drugged. And then I would go and get my bag of heroin because I needed it. I was an absolute broken mess. Yeah, I was reared in a beautiful home here at the Republic of Ireland. A very, very loving spiritual home. And I was a kind of spiritual kid. But at the same time, I was always looking at other people. The grass was always greener. I remember in my house in the state looking out and thinking, he has a better car than my father, but I couldn't see the people that didn't have a car. I couldn't see the woods because the trees was in the way. My whole life, I was very ungrateful, and I was always in my head. And I woke up this morning with the problem. So the minute I got on my knees and handed my day over to a loving, caring God, of my understanding, my finite little understanding, that I know that if I have faith that I will get through the day. And that's a miracle. It's a miracle. I got my knees not to look for a bottle under the bed, not to look for a pill on the floor, not to wake up to people banging on the door guards, not to come to in a cell or on a trolley, handcuffed to a trolley in a psych ward. Where people used to watch me in the hospital on suicide watch, not because I was suicide, because I would drink hand sanitizer. I was a mess. So just a couple of milestones in my life, I suppose. Yeah, in 1997, a friend of mine, my cousin, said, drink's going to kill you. And I laughed at him. And a week later, we went to buy a half ounce of hash and turn over. And, we were on a motorbike, and we hit a car at 90 miles an hour, or 90 kilometers an hour. He was killed instantly. I was fired on the barbed wire. So I got a lot of time out of that. But that made me walk into my first fellowship in 1998. A cocky young kid. I walked into my first treatment centre in 2001, and I took in Xanax and hash. And I was messing about with women. It was mixed, and it was a 6-week program. And I'm back out, and I drank a bottle of whiskey, and I nearly died. And I had a lot further to fall in my life, and I did not know what was wrong with me. There was a lot of fear. Yeah, I remember Lyle Bruce's in the big book said, "The coward dies 1,000 times, the brave man only once," and I died a lot. I was always fearful for what other people might think. I would get out of a treatment centre and people say, "You're doing well," and all that. I was an absolute ball of pain. I was broken. I would go to other meetings and I would sit there and I would take other people's inventory and I would sit listening to the messenger, not the message. And when they were done with the war stories, I would tune out. So I don't talk too much about war stories. I don't. I talk a little about what got me here and a lot about what keeps me here. And what keeps me here is my action. My thinking is where the disease lies. And the more action I put in, the closer I am to a loving, caring God who saved my life. Like you're talking to someone who overdosed on heroin, put a needle in his arm. I one time woke up in a hospital and the other in a blink and I straight back out to score. Got out of it. They told me I was going to die when I operated on my stomach too. After an ulcer, I got out and I had staples on my stomach to the off license. Nurses was watching me go for a cigarette and back drunk because I was a stone mad mess. So I ended up back in a treatment centre then in 2020, I think it was. I remember it was week 7 and spirituality, the God word used to scare the living hell. I mean, no, I didn't want anything to do with your God thing. You're all a bunch of holy Joes. I had no idea I'd further the fall, but God was always there. Without a doubt. I was in the middle of Galway once. It was actually week 7, spirituality is that week. And, I was out questioning the whole thing. And somebody comes in to do a man share from, with 100, talking about 100 lads sitting there, men only. And it was a fellow coming from share. And I was out there looking at the statue of Our Lady, questioning the whole thing. And all of a sudden somebody said, "Marty." And I told her, and I says, "Ian." And I watched that man 100 kilometres away in my flat in this town, this in the west of Ireland, in my town, watching me smoke heroin, going to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And I had no doubt about it, that was God's grace, but still did not listen. So I went back out and I got 3 or 4 weeks and I drank it and used again. And so they took me back in and I always went to Kinmary. You mightn't have heard of it, but there's a lovely nun here, and she's an absolute saint. And she saves thousands and thousands of Irish people from all over the world. Famous people have been in there. John Hurt was in it. There's lots of other people, but it's just that she took me back in. She believed in me. So I went back in, and I done 6 months, and I used, and they took me back in and done 4 months. I done 10 months. So 10 months, I said, I have it this time. So I went back out and I went to my meetings and I kept going to my meetings. And then I woke up, came to one morning after drinking, and nobody was more shocked than I was. How did this happen? How did I drink again? I was going to 12 face-to-face meetings, but I realised that I found a sponsor. So I'm too sick for the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, too sick for the fellowship of Narcotic Anonymous, too sick for the fellowship of Cocaine Anonymous. I needed a program, because I suffer from a threefold illness, physical allergy, mental obsession, and a spiritual malady, so I have to get a program into my life, and I do service and I carry the message to newcomers. And this is so, so important for me to talk to a newcomer, because I'd be dead if it wasn't for a lady mentioning my name when I come on these meetings. I was an absolute broken mess, and I was going to switch to Sally on, and she called me by my name, and that was God's grace. And a week before that, I got out of my 7th treatment program, and I was using and drinking again. But when I was suicidal, I was down by the lake, and a friend of mine rang me from Limerick, says, "Why don't you try CA?" And I'm straight away, I'm a heroin addict. What do I know about coke? And I took coke, but I'd rather heroin. He said, "Just try it," and I was willing to try it. So I went in that meeting, and she called my name, and I have no doubt about it, that was God's grace. So I listened to people, and they started talking about a solution, outlined in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I started to see these people smiling. How dare they smile, man? No way, What if they had a smile? But I'm sitting here an absolute mess. Make a gratitude list. What have I to be grateful for? It's all about me. That's where the disease lays. I'm a selfish, self-centered person, It's all about Martin. Today it's not. Today I can pick up the phone. You know, if I don't, I know I'll go back into my ego and I will edge God out, you know. And so I listen to a lot of speaker tapes too. And, I was listening to, I know Mark Houston or someone said that when I was 14, I found alcohol, and I drank the cider, and the step 9 promises came true for me immediately. I was amazed before I was halfway through. I knew freedom, I knew happiness, I realized alcohol was doing for me what I could not do for myself. I wasn't born an alcoholic, but the minute I drank, an alcoholic was born because I never drank one in my life. I was always the first to the party and the last one to leave. People were done with me. I burned every bridge. I was a user of people. I didn't just use drink and drugs. I used people. And I like, even if I'm having a conversation with a person, I was waiting for them to shut up so that I could talk. I'm aware this is a friendly family, but I never really swear much in my life. I mean, I'm not an angry person, but I'm a very, very fearful person. Scared of like I do a lot of imaginative functioning in my head. I fear is future events already ruined. I can identify with that. F everything and run, or face everything and recover. So I had to face the fact that I just will not drink. And step one, I cannot not drink. I could stop, but I couldn't stay stopped. And I would go to meetings, and there was other people there, and they were happy, but they mightn't had they might have been the moderate drink. Once a heavy drinker puts down a drink, then the problems are over. Mine's just starting. I realised that now today, and I would sit there and I was told just not drink and get to your meetings, but I did not know how not to drink. I had to drink and I had to use, And they would sit there and they would say, live by the slogans. And there used to be a slogan, think, think, think. And I detest that. And I still don't like that slogan. It should be replaced with action, 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 because thinking is my problem. I cannot think my way out of my problems. Faith without works is dead, My shower, I had a shower before, it was bogging the other day, and I had to get up and I cleaned it, I can pray for that shower to be clean, but if I don't get up, and do something, nothing will happen. If you pray for a mountain to be moved, you better be prepared to wake up next to a shovel, And in the other case, I find that work without faith is dead. I have to have faith in God. I had to have faith in my sponsor, and I can guarantee you, I was going to the rosary before I even, that fella made that phone call at the lake, and I now realise that God answered my prayers. I was sitting there with 24 years plus, he's sweating, at the back of the rosary, and I did not know where to go. I went to the chapel for a bit of heat, And the miracle today is that my life and people around me have recovered, I don't have to sit smoking heroin by candlelight because I couldn't pay the electricity bill, I don't have to go out there and manipulate and rob people because I was a manipulator. The last time I went into a treatment centre, I was 3 stone underweight, and I went in with 3 shoes, not 3 pairs of shoes. And they had to shave me, they had to fix me up. Here's Martin again, get him in bed. And I remember coming to the next day, reaching under the bed for a bottle of wine and realising where I was in a treatment centre. And I would manipulate my way into the kitchen because I knew there was lots of food there, and I would come out 3 stone overweight. And I had no idea what's wrong with me. Why am I different than all these people? And if you're sitting there and you're like, feel I'm not like him or not like, I can identify so much with that, because that's what a disease is. It's a lie. Everything my head tells me is a lie. So I have to have faith in the loving, caring God. And how if my meditation prayer is not working, God's nudging me and telling me, ring someone, go out there and help someone. God pulled me out of hell to go back and pull other people out. I have no doubt about that. I have no doubt about that. And, I'm not going to be able to save everyone. I've had a lot of sponsees have relapsed and back out there, but I've had 100% success rate because I haven't drank, I haven't used. It's so important for me. Bill W. knew that. His wife Lois even knew that. I think it was her said, he says, I can't reach these people. She's like, but you haven't drank, And when him and Dr. Bob went to Bill D, we have the solution for alcoholism. I think it was his wife said, no, you can't help me. He's he's done, you know. There's no help. No, he's going to help us. That's what it's all about, you know. Dr. Bob was only 18 days sober doing a step 12 call. So if you think you're here, I'm 30 days, what have I got the... I was told just pick up the phone and ring someone behind you. Ask how their day was. Get out of the problem. The problem is my head. And it really worked. And once I got that pen and paper down, I had no idea what I was doing. On my step 4, I had to use my step 3. I had to invite God in. You know? I told him to meet me at 3 o'clock. I haven't a clue what I'm doing. I'm full of fear. I sat there and I said the step 3 prayer and I got it all out on paper. And then I shared it with another human being, the stuff I never thought about them. And the devilments that were with me, you know, I was praying misery and depression. Oh my God, I was so depressed. I was so anxious when I put the drink and drugs down, you know, and I would go to GPs looking for antidepressants, antipsychotics, and they would roll their eyes, not him again. But, you know, I stopped. It was a program of abstinence. This is only my experience now. I'm not telling anyone what to do. On the tradition aid, I'm not a professional. With my experiences, I got complete abstinence, and I was prey to misery and depression. And when I shared that step 5, I think it was then when I went to the chapel and were the 6 and the 7, I was willing that God have it all, you know. So I prayed God remove, and I came floating out of that chapel, you know. It's something happened to me, and a spiritual experience was a horrible thing, and the pain I was going through. But I now realize now, like Rumi says, break, and that's where the light came in, you know. It was a cold and broken hallelujah, my spiritual experience, because there was nobody left in my life but God. There was nobody wanted anything to do with me. My 10-minute phone calls, I give them to other lads at the treatment centre because we're done with me. We're done with you, Matt. We can't help you. And doctors say, you're going to die. You have cirrhosis of the liver. You can't have to stop drinking. And I drank more because of fear. You know, I was going to die. Jails or institutions, jails, institutions or deaths. I was in danger of being institutionalised or dying. Because the 10 months in the treatment centre, kids, young boys would come in, you know, and I'd be there 6 months. It's only a 3-month programme, you know, and they'd say, go to Martin, he's more programmes than the BBC, you know, and I would tell them. It was brilliant at trusting God and cleaning other people's houses. Oh, it was brilliant at that. I could tell you what to do, you know. But I didn't want anyone to see through the mask I was wearing because I'd lost my higher power, whiskey and heroin and benzos, lyric and sanitizer, you name it, I'd lost it. So I'm here to tell you my experience. If you don't think you have a higher power, you do. My higher power was whiskey. My higher power was heroin. I handed my will and my life over. When they called, I answered. When I went to my meetings, I get 6 months. I was taking, don't use, get to bed, don't use. They controlled me. You know, even when I wasn't using, don't use. You know, people, places, and things. I'm powerless over them. Not my experience anymore. I have power in my life. It's just not my power. It's God's power. And I'm here to tell you that if you are broken and you are new, please don't listen to your head. Please come in and share. Get to meetings. Make a connection with loving, caring people who love you. I detested myself. I couldn't look myself in the mirror. You know? Today I can. Today I'm proud. I like the step 5 promises. I can look the world in the eye. When I'm walking down the street, I don't have to sway from pavement to pavement, not because I'm drunk, because I'm avoiding people. I don't want them to see through this mask. Today I'm happy, joyous, and free. I'm recovered. I don't have to tell you I'm recovered. People can see. It says in the big book, people will see before me. And they did. There was a psychic change in me as a result of these steps, you know. And if you're new, don't concentrate too much. Just concentrate on the first step in recovery. Consider that you're in the most self that you're alcoholic or an addict, you know. Not the first step in the program. Find someone who's had that spiritual awakening. Someone you can identify with. A lot of people were talking, bring me through the steps. I'll sponsor you. But I know, I think I asked God for a bit of help at that time. And I found another heroin addict, you know. And we're lucky because we don't make it. And he was a bad case of alcoholism too. Went to treatment centres. Had a loving, caring guy, you know. Why am I wearing the shirt? I'm wearing the shirt because the shirt got me sober. I'm part of the Rich McLean. And I do have what my sponsor says. And people talk a lot about the rich line being tough and all that, but my sponsor is an absolutely loving, caring human being who God works through. And it got me connected to that God. God is speaking through me now. I have no doubt about it. God is doing for me what I can't do for myself, you know. And if I continue to put in the action, I have no doubt about it. Every morning I wake up to my addictions out there like a sniper, you know. So I have to help other people. Alcoholics Anonymous, Mickey Bush says, is a life centered on helping others, lives in complete sobriety. Action, not our names, yields maintenance, unity, and service. You know, so it's all about going out there and helping other people, not just alcoholics and addicts. You know, somebody that will get me spiritually connected with a loving, caring God. You know, whether it be a pensioner or somebody disabled or somebody like, you know, I got a new fridge there, and I give my old one to neighbours who's treated alcoholism and addiction, bad alcoholism and addiction. You know, because it was the right thing to do. You know, because I wouldn't be alive if people hadn't cared for me. I'd be dead. And I was going to die, there's no doubt about it. Because whether it be suicide, seizures, overdose, it didn't matter. I've lost a lot of friends to this disease. Friends I've sat and shared in treatment centre, 16, you know. I sat in my last group in the treatment centre, looking around thinking, who's going to be next? And it hit me, it was going to be me. And people were telling me that for a long time. My parents used to hate when the landline went off, because people ring mobiles out. When it was the landline, was always the hospital. Martin's back in again, you know. Ambulances come peeling me off the street, having seizures, you know. I went for an eye operation too, and I smoked a bag of heroin. And I didn't. That dangerous stuff, absolute lunatic, stone mad. But I did not know I was so selfish and self-centered. And again, it was ego. I was edging God out. I had no power greater than myself. I don't know how long I've been speaking for, but because there's no timer. But I can tell you one thing, that I have so much love for people in these rooms. You know, Mimi and Nicholas, good to see them. Carly, everyone. I'll not mention everyone's names. Heather, Jim, Katie, everyone is. You know, even yous I haven't met. I'd be on my knees tonight praying that I met yous, and I'd be praying for somebody suffering. And every time I go and I light a candle at the chapel, I light it for other people now. Because, you know, I know God has my back. The pain ahead of me is not like the pain behind me, I hear an old timer say, and I can identify with that, you know. I only have today. And I still mad lunatic, very hard to stay present. But I can guarantee you one thing, no matter what shows up in my life, I haven't thought of heroin or alcohol or benzos or any painkillers since week 5, you know, and that's an absolute miracle. That is a miracle. I was 34 years at it, and I was going to psych wards and meetings and just doing Martin's self-will. Today I'm not. Today I'm doing God's message. And I love everyone he is. And I'm here to tell you that just use the chat function if you're broken. Let me help you and help me stay sober one more day. God bless everyone he is. Thanks for asking, Paul.